Assalamu alaikum. This is chapter 8 in creativity, thinking, and problem solving for the management or business administration department course, English section, level 2, Faculty of Commerce, Zagazig University. In this chapter, we will start introducing the tools we need to use in order for enhancing our abilities, our skills for problem solving in a creative way. The chapter's title is Objective Finding, Fact Finding, and Problem Finding Definition. This title came from that process, the stages we introduced in chapter 3. In chapter 3 الحقيقة احنا at the end of the chapter we introduced that process and we explained that we will follow these suggested stages in order to come up with creative ideas. There are tools for each stage. Some tools may be used in more than one stage. So this chapter we will introduce some tools related to stage 1, 2, 3, objective finding, fact finding, problem finding. The process we are using is called CPS process, or creative problem solving process. Here is an outline. Here is in our outline of this chapter, we will list the tools we are using for the objective finding. The first stage we have here, objective finding. We will have the SWOT analysis. Of course, you all know this technique, but we will use it in slightly different way. Not different, how it can be used for creativity issues. Stage number 2, fact finding. We will have two tools. The 6 questions, the 6 famous WH questions: who, what, where, when, why, how. Yeah, it's pretty logical that we use such questions to collect and study issues, because these questions help us collect information about issues. So who and what and where and when and why and how about specific issue. We will have another technique called dimensional analysis. So we collect data and information about specific dimensions suggested in this technique. In problem finding, we will have 2 types of approaches. The first approach is called the redefinition approaches. The second one, analytical methods. The redefinition approaches, we have the laddering, goal orientation, boundary examination, progressive abstraction, why method. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 small tools we will have in these redefinition approaches. The analytical methods are usually used in a bit, I don't want to say complex, but yes, it's complex situation that has many components and it needs to be decomposed or portrayed in some diagrams in order to understand the details of such problems. This is a quick overview of the tools we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tools we will have in these chapters over 2 lectures. Let's start with our first lecture here, objective finding. You expect we will have SWOT analysis. The main nice story we have here in our introduction, you remember Einstein said that if I have 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and 5 minutes finding the solution. We cannot find better saying than this one whenever we are talking about objective finding or problem diagnosing or fact finding of something. Yes, it is a better analysis will always lead and ease the way to find the best solution. That's what Einstein is trying to say here. Objective finding, fact finding, and gaining different perspectives on a problem can itself sometimes alleviate block thinking. You remember in chapter 2 we have these blocks, mind blocks and creativity blocks. So one important task, objective for these 3 stages is to alleviate block thinking. Quite often we are apt to treat symptoms rather than the real disease. You remember this as well. Such stages help you not to fill in this problem, which is treating the symptoms, not the real problem. So they help us go deep to the real causes of the problem in order to have an effective or efficient solution for the problem. Also in our introductory part here, it's important to say that we usually do divergent thinking. You remember this dichotomy, divergent, convergent? Divergent, we mean we think horizontally. We investigate too many things. And then we move to the convergence. Convergence means that التقاربي اللي هو احنا we think deep in one point, not in many points like here. So we tend to start divergent and move to convergence after that to generate many areas of the problem or many list of smaller problems of the main topic we have or the main objective we are dealing with in the objective finding. And then we deal after that with one area for further exploration. Here 4 aspects of comparisons we need to go through whenever we are doing problem recognition. We compare between current experience with past experience. So what we see now is what we had before. Current experience with our objectives. Current performance with what is the performance required, what we call it desirable outcome. A performance with other organizations as well. So such areas help us understand gaps. Problems can be, or a problem can be defined by a gap that we may see between such 2 pairs, these pairs. That was our introduction for the chapter. Let's move to the first tool we have, which is the very famous SWOT analysis. Of course, you know SWOT, SWOT, S for strengths, W for weaknesses, opportunities for O for opportunities, T for threats. In this example we have here, in which we apply a SWOT analysis, we have a SWOT analysis for toy manufacturers. A toy manufacturer company analyzed its SWOT and they found that the internal analysis, the S&W, they have 2 strengths and they have 2 weaknesses. 2 strengths are they have strong existing contacts with outlets. They have strong front-end contacts, and also they have good name, they have good image. However, they have 2 weaknesses. Production costs are high and they suffer from seasonal sales, up and downs. They have demand go up and down, and that would create difficulties in the down times. The O and T, the external dimensions, they have 2 O's, 2 opportunities. Films, they have spin-offs. Spin-off, it means that byproducts, that come from the demand of people to watch movies and watch films. So this desire or demand for films, they may result in, or they make them introduce toys that related to films. A toy that represent some character came in a cartoon movie or something, or introduce a toy that enable to introduce small clips or something like this from movies. I don't know. يعني it is introduced here in an abstract way, but its byproducts come from films. Also, as well, there is an opportunity for holidays, and holidays sales goes up. These are two opportunities. We have two threats: competition from abroad, and kids now want electronic gizmos. Gizmos يعني الحاجات الغريبة الإلكترونية الغريبة اللي هي something strange that we see nowadays. They like such electronic gizmos. Okay, what we want to do here is to match the S's with the O's, the W's and the O's, the S's and the T, the W and the T, and we come up with a better definition for what we really want in the light of these S's, W's, O's, and T. So let's match the S and O. If we match O1 with S1 and S2, we may come up with this objective for our problem: how to win major toy contracts using outlets and company name. This is O1 with S1, S2. So how do we use these two strengths? It's very classical. And we use these strengths as the beginning of the sentence. How do we use these two in relation to opportunities of film spins? We may match or map O2 with W2 that we have here: seasonal sales to holiday approaching, the approach of holidays. How to advertise products so that they will sell all the year round. So trying to solve these seasonal sales against this holiday approaching. How to advertise products so that they will sell all the year round. O2 and W2. Dealing with threat 2 and using S2, we may define الobjective بتاعنا: how to use the company name, it's S2 here, to develop electronic toys. So you are dealing with electronic gizmos. The threat is by developing electronic techno, dealing with those techno kids. Okay, so that what might be the objective. If you define an objective in some way, your solution will come from this very early beginning of this definition. You may, as suggested here, W1, the weakness 1, which is high cost for production, and T1, threat 1, competition for abroad. How to reduce costs to compete with threats from foreign competition. That might be the objective. Dealing with the weakness against the threat. How can we deal with this threat and this weakness together? So that might be our objective. So this tool is just help us to think, define our objective. Our objective could be dealing with weakness and threat, or utilizing strength and opportunities, or a mix of dealing with a weakness against some opportunity we have here, and so on. So putting this with that and this with those, that may help us better define our objective in the early stage of solving our problems. In the following two slides, the text provide us with some additional material that help us elaborate, enhance our thinking, our initial definitions or statements we had here. They present again the idea of hits and hotspots. You remember this from the previous chapter. We mentioned that we use what is called hits and hotspots. In chapter 3, we introduced this concept of hits and hotspots, in which we try to decompose things into a few elements. So Hits means specific items that are identified as important or relevant to a particular stage. So we may talk about gizmos or techno kids as a hit, and these small items with another items related to electronic toys, or related to whatever, another item close to it, we may cluster them, put them together in a hotspot. So that would be related to something bigger. This bigger hotspot is usually identified by questioning: is there an ownership to these items? Is it related to specific department or factory? So we may define that to a hotspot is related to the factory in Egypt مثلا. فall the gizmos, all the techno kids, all the electronic toys, all the related to the factory in Egypt will develop this. Or maybe not the factory, maybe a specific department for the toy. So we try to find the ownership, the department, or the person. It could be a higher level or lower level, or a specific desk or an outlet or something like this. Another hotspot could be dividing the items according to some priority, high important or low important, or could be these items categorized according to very urgent or not so urgent, or moderate one. So in this stage, whatever definitions we had from the previous analysis, we try to classify them into a technique that the textbooks use, is hits and hotspots. So as we see, it's a subjective process. It's something that we do judgmentally, يعني حاجة بالحكم الشخصي كده, to identify. It differs from one person to another. We try to find hits and cluster them into groups, according to ownership, priority, critical nature, as we mentioned here, those three. And after reviewing the hits and applying the criteria, decided the three criteria on the problem statement, then we move to the next stage about fact find. So احنا كده يا جماعة we finished the first one اللي هي objective finding here. And one technique only, the SWOT analysis, and using hits and hotspots to categorize the items related to the problem. Now we are moving to the fact finding and the very famous WH6 cards or questions, WH questions. Fact finding, a collection of relevant information. So احنا بنجمع معلومات يعني, and any technique help us to collect this information. Collecting information here, we can use hits and hotspots we mentioned in the previous one, but now we are talking about the 6 questions. Let's first start with some nice idea to use the analysis. We define or we take the problem, for example, that we came up with as an objective from a SWOT analysis, or generally from your manager, okay, and then reword, صياغة يعني تصيغ المشكلة, rewording the problem with using this sentence in the beginning. In what ways might we do this, right? So if our manager is saying that we have a slowdown sales, so in what way we might stop slowing down of sales, or we increase sales but instead of slowing down, right? So we word it in this way: in what ways might IWWM. So now after we write this sentence that is vaguely or broadly defined, we start collecting information: who and why and what and when and how related to this sentence. So who is concerned with this downturn sales? Are only the salespeople, or the wholesaler or retailer? Because it's only for retailer or wholesaler, so then we need to redefine the problem, that in what way might we enhance sales of agents or wholesaler, right? So we need to be specific in order to find a more creative solution, not for the whole organization. You see how it works? So you begin to collect information and redefine the problem again according to answering the question of who, and then answering the question of why, and then what, and so on. So we use the answers to create redefinition again. And then at the end, after our thinking process, using this tool, we select the best redefinition that is related to good understanding of the problem based on the fact-finding information area. Here is a slide, that a funny one, that tells we have 6 honest serving men that taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. This is written by Rudyard Kipling. These 6 serving men are: who is it about? What happened? What's the story? When did it take place? Where did it take place? Why did it happen? How did it happen? Let's try this in an example to see how it works. How can we use this to think in a creative way? For example, if your manager say, we have low staff morale, we need to solve this problem of low staff morale, right? This came from an objective finding stage, and we need to deal with it using these 6 serving men. So we use what we said here, IWWM. So we write low staff morale and we write before it IWWM, like this. IWWM, we may improve staff morale. So you see, the problem we had was only staff morale, and we added this. In what way might we improve staff morale? Okay, this is a broad definition. We need to enhance this definition. How? By collecting information. First item of information, according to the 6 serving men, is who. Who are the people concerned with this staff? All the staff or only few of them? We need to rewrite and write better definition of staff. So we found out of collecting information that shop service counter only staff are concerned with this. So then we can redefine. Okay, and let's collect information also about what is low morale. It's not all morale. It's not home areas or domestic areas that affect our morale. No, it's just those people have lack of motivation to do good job and present a friendly interface with the customer. This is the problem we found after some investigation. Also, the where may help us enhance our definition. So where this happened, does it all for the service counter? No. The problem happened only in the city center locations, not for all morale. Then we complete with when and how and so on to the rest of the 6 serving men. In the end, after collecting all this information, we found that we have a better definition here. In what way might we satisfy the wants and needs, and after understanding it's only motivation. So by enhancing motivation, we wrote wants and needs of weekend, because we found that when the answer is their morale go down in weekend only. Weekend retail counter. So because why retail? Because we found this while we were investigating the where. Okay, in city center stores, right? So this is a better definition. Or we may have another definition out of our investigation. In what way might we seek to improve the friendliness? Friendliness is another definition, better than the very general one, staff morale, of customer service interviews, and so on. We may, out of collecting information, come up with a much better definition of the problem and enhancing the objective we adapt for the problem we are dealing with. That was technique number 1. Technique number 2 is called dimensional analysis. In this tool, we collect information. It's fact-finding area, and instead of these 6 questions, we have 5 dimensions. We investigate 5 dimensions of a broad problem: substantive, spatial, temporal, quantitative, and qualitative. Substantive, it means the core point, the what are we talking about. Okay, and spatial is the place where it take, is it here or there, or temporal, the time. Quantitative, it's about the how many, is it too many things or few things we are talking about. The qualitative one is about is it something deep or something superficial. So we define the limits or boundaries and dimensions of a problem through these 5 dimensions. Let's have a problem. Another example here. The problem we are dealing with is shop floor productivity declining. This is the broad definition. We may use the 6 questions, okay, and that would decrease or limit the area of the problem, enhancing this. And also we use the 5 dimensions, step number 3, the substantive and spatial, temporal, quantitative and qualitative. The substantive اللي هي الموضوع ايه بالظبط, الكور point. Is something need to be done and it's not done, or something need to be modified, or so we call it commission omission. Commission and something to be done, omission something to be omitted, right? This is, can we describe the problem that way? Or is it something related to actions, deeds, or something before actions, like attitude, right? So is a decline due to attitudes, because we are happy, because we are sad, because we are anxious, because or it's something related to some behavior, right? Not related to attitude. Do we have ends and means, situation, cause and effect, symptom and a disease behind that symptom or not? So it's these 3 things, 3 dimensions, or 3 things we investigate in order to better understand the substantive dimension of the problem of productivity declining. The second one is the place. Is it something local or something distant, right? Is it isolated or widespread? And how extensive is it? How extensive is it? That is a special one. Temporal. Are we talking about something recent or something in the future? When it happened? How long has the problem existed? If solved, will it lead to more problems or not? So this is the temporal part, right? You know, investigating, this is areas for investigation. It helps us redefine the problem in a better way. The quantitative, is the problem single or it has more than one problem? Do we have causes or one cause, right? Do we have a single person, individual, or few people, or many ones? So this is what is related to الأعداد, يعني quantitative. Qualitative as well is an important part, which is related to how the problem is rooted, or is it a superficial or surface problem? What values are being violated? What is really went wrong deep there or up there on the surface? احنا كده we finished fact finding. We have only 2 tools. Inshallah, next lecture we will deal with stage number 3. It's problem finding, and in the problem finding we'll have too many tools, actually 7 tools in the next session. Thank you.